Good morning, everybody. It's time to open the joint union session, Geoscience and Society. To begin with, I will give you a short explanation how the whole thing came about. I am Tadao Nishiyama, JpGU Program Chair of 2016 meeting. And as you know, this time, JpGU planned to collaborate with AGU. And we plan to have joint sessions together with AGU. And initially, we expected 10 to 15 joint sessions. But it turns out to be 49 joint sessions. It's a great success due to collaboration with AGU. Thank you very much, AGU. And as a highlight of joint session, we have this joint union session. I discussed with Denis Didier-Rousseau, AGU Fall Meeting Chair 2016, what kind of joint union session we should have. And we decided to have the session under the title of Geoscience and Society with Great Debate Style. The Great Debate Style is not familiar to JpGU member. But it's established in EGU and also in AGU, I believe. We are very pleased to have an excellent moderator, Professor Asahiko Taira. He is a leading geoscientist in the world, and he is famous for the work of accretionary prism, the cement belt in Japan, and also famous for as a leader in the ocean floor drilling project using the drilling ship named JpGU. And we have 5 panelists, 4 from JpGU side and 1 from AGU side. They are a good mixture of established scientists and young and active researchers. So it should be exciting. And now, it's very personal, but allow me to speak about my recent experience. I have experienced 2 big earthquakes very recently. 1 month ago, I experienced magnitude 6.5 earthquakes, followed by magnitude 7.0 earthquakes 2 days later. It was a great shake. I was in a bus, and I felt as if the bathroom, square bathroom, is deformed to be a parallelogram like that. It was a very strong sympathy, I mean. So 50 people were killed or missing in Kumamoto City. And our university has been severely damaged. All the equipment was destroyed or damaged. And we have many landslides in Mount Aso adjacent to the city. And a big bridge connecting the city and Mount Aso fell down due to landslide. So it was a very good chance for me to rethink about the role of geoscience in the society. I know, of course, earthquakes cannot be predicted, but no warning about the possible earthquake in Kumamoto area. So I worried about even warning is impossible. That is my question. So today's issue is very keen to me, and also you could enjoy the discussion as well as myself. And main point we have the role of geoscience in the society, and the second point, the geoscience is really needed in the society. And the third point, if so, how we can grow vocations in young generations. I mean, how to grow the sense of professionalism of geoscience in young generations. So please enjoy this session. Thank you. And Dennis will follow me.
Good morning. My name is Denis Didier Rousseau, and I am the present AGU Fall Meeting Program Chair. And I am sincerely very pleased to be in Chiba today to co-convene this session with Professor Nishiyama, which is this first edition of this JpGU-AGU Great Debate, which align perfectly with both unions' missions and goals. The format of the Great Debates at the AGU Fall Meeting is built through a panel of which is composed of scientists or non-scientists, but with different agendas and origins, addressing a topic related to geosciences, but with in a broad sense, but with some societal touch. And this is the reason why we choose this with this topic, geosciences and society. So, as this great debate will continue next December at the AGU Fall Meeting, it's already scheduled. The present edition is mainly Japan-oriented, while in December it will be its counterpart will be mostly North America-oriented. So last but not the least, as the audience is expected to participate to this debate, I wish that you will not be shy and ask a lot of questions, even the most incredible questions or provocative questions. You are free to do so. Enjoy the great debate, and thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much for the introduction by the co-conveners, Professors Nishiyama and Rosso. My name is Asahiko Taira. I belong to the JAMSTEC, Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology, and I was asked to moderate this panel session months ago, although I was not fully aware of what this really great debate is all about. But after the exchange of information, I understood that the key point is make it a lively discussion place and also get a lot of exchange from the panelists and floor. So I will keep asking you that sort of key questions or some even the outrageous question being thrown to the floor through this panel discussion. And after the accepting the job of moderator, and I've been asked to the panelists who've been chosen here as the 5 panelists. They will be introduce themselves later, but we prepare for 3 keywords related to the geoscience and society. And instead of this whole point is not selling their own discipline or the sales point of their merit of their what they have done. Instead, we're going to discuss broad and basic issues related to geoscience and society. And they throw 3 questions, but I think I like to change through the course of discussion with 3 keywords we received beforehand and change to the two basic questions, which I'll show you later. But let me start with using the first 30 minutes or so, having the presentation from the panelists, 3 keywords, what they think are important for the leading geoscience and the society, and explain what their keywords means, and then with self-introduction with yourself. The first point, Muneo Hori Sensei, please.
So I came from Earthquake Research Institute as well as the Department of Civil Engineering. So I belong to the civil engineers. Anyway, I'm doing mainly so-called computational earthquake engineering, like a use of supercomputers. The one example is like this: the big simulations of, say, this is like 100 million degree of freedom systems. And using supercomputers, we are making this. Also, modeling is very important for us. So we are making so-called automated model constructions. This is the courtesy of Tokyo Metropolis Express. They gave us some data, and we automatically make this bridge highways. We hope this could be applied to any bridges in the world. So we are making this. And finally, using these things,
we use K computers and make so-called earthquake simulations. And I have to say this way, this research activity is somehow appreciated by the computational science peoples, and degree of freedom or scale of the computation is world #1. This is like a 0.1 trillion degree of freedom systems. 0.1 trillion is a large number. And also modeling is very important because this is a real soil layers, and length scale is 10 kilometers. We construct a 3D unstructured mesh models and distribute this to the parallel computers. And we have to consider the scalability of these technical issues. And somehow we are able to solve this 0.1 trillion degree of freedom models. And soil is nonlinear and, well, many, many details. But due to the power of our modern computers, we are able to calculate this 10 kilometer square areas up to the 10 hertz. 10 hertz is more than enough for civil engineering or engineering, say, seismic designs. And this is a distribution of the ground motions. And let me emphasize, this is up to the 10 hertz, so we are able to compute. And at the same time, I have to mention that we are able to compute, but it doesn't mean that this computation is correct because we are still lacking the basic data background. We have some data, but not perfect. But given quality and quantity of ground data, we have a computational power that's able to solve this. And then again, we make a model. There's 300,000 buildings. And as I explained, we have automated model construction techniques, and we can make a nonlinear structure models, and we can see how it goes. And for computer, it never cares the structure or building or ground, and we can make a model for people. And we are making an evacuation on 2 million people in Tokyo. Of course, it's quite a nonsense considering the evacuation in the Tokyo area, especially 2 million, but the computer never hesitate to make such simulations. And we are so-called multi-agent systems. Each agent can see and think and move in the computer environment. And we can consider kind of mixture of pedestrian and automobiles. Anyway, if we make a good computers, and if we use a good computer as well, if we make a good computer programs, and if we use a good computers, we're able to calculate the 2 million evacuation simulations. So this is what I'm doing. And now go to the 3 keywords. First, as I emphasized, I'm an engineer, so cost and benefit is very, very essential. And if geoscience community consider the, say, good countermeasures for natural disaster, I really appreciate the cost and the benefit fully thought. And second one is the clear explanations. Of course, I believe many panelists explain this stuff. My point is very clear. We don't need any elementary explanations. We need a rational explanation or scientific explanations, just like relativity for graduate students or undergraduate students. We need a rational and clear explanations. And third one is the collaborations. I mean the collaboration is not in this geoscientist, but a larger group or say set of researchers. For instance, I explained my research activity. It's purely the collaboration with a computational scientist and a computer scientist, because we need a so-called co-design of computer hardware and computer software to make a good performance, say, simulations. So collaboration really means that outside of your communities. I really appreciate if such collaborations for make countermeasures for natural disasters made by the leadership of this geoscientist. This is end of my talk. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Fantastic computer simulation work, and really surprising all the individuals being created by computer and moving around. Anyway, let me proceed to to Dr. Stephen.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Obrakta. I'm from the Akita University Faculty of International Resource Science. And today I have basically three kind of key points that I would like to discuss with you today, or that I would like to bring up for discussion with you today. First would be understanding and communication of risk. Also related to this, we need to be able to, as geosciences, communicate the uncertainty in any of our results, interpretations, conclusions. And then finally, we need to be able to effectively interact with the various stakeholders in any particular system or problem. And I have one interrelated example specific to Japan that I'm going to use to kind of describe how I'm considering these particular key points. And, but this is not obviously limited to Japan whatsoever. With this is much broader. This could be very, very easily applied elsewhere. So following the Tohoku earthquake in Japan, we exchanged one set of risks for another. We were on a decreasing trend for our greenhouse gas emissions. However, with the increased risk for nuclear accidents following the Fukushima Daiichi problem, we decided that we needed to immediately stop nuclear and switch over to some other source of energy generation. And at the time, the only thing we had to choose from was coal-fired plants. So we reduced our risks from nuclear, but we increased our risks to greenhouse gases. And to illustrate this, I have the Antarctic continent here, bedrock, shown. And basically, there's in excess of about 10 meters of sea level equivalent ice grounded below sea level in Antarctica. And this is extremely vulnerable. And a lot of the feedbacks and dynamics are not well understood. Which brings me to my next point, which would be communication of uncertainty. So continuing with this greater than 10 meters worth of sea level equivalent ice in Antarctica, and if this plays, yeah. So this is basically what would happen if all of that melted to the Kanto plain, and we would be swimming somewhere over here, I think. However, this is where the importance of the communication of uncertainty comes in. In the 21st century, according to the IPCC AR5, there's only medium confidence of tens of centimeters worth of contribution from this marine ice sheet instability effect. So if we don't communicate our confidence and any likelihood sort of scenarios, then we're not doing anyone really any good favors. So clearly in Japan, in the world in general, we want to find energy generation sources that are relatively risk-free. And up until recently, it was harder to do in Japan, but we are now able to begin to develop geothermal plants in our national parks. One of the issues that we now will have to begin with is how do we effectively communicate and work with the current stakeholders who have been the only people really to exploit this particular resource of hot water. And it's not just monkeys, it's also humans that use this. But so essentially, those are the kind of the points that I would like to bring up for discussion, and hopefully we can have a very nice, lively talk about all sorts of things that will make Denny very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's proceed to the Professor Oki.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Sataka Oki, Associate Professor at Keio University, SFC. I'm a little bit nervous sitting with those big names. Like most of them were already professors when I was in a first-year student of grade school, so I'm really nervous sitting here. I originally got doctorate degree in Earth's deep interior, like at the tomography. So it's more like pure science at University of Tokyo. But now I'm working more on communication of disaster with general public rather than natural science. So my first key phrase is that geoscientists should explain the limitation of geosciences. Well, in simpler words, I mean like geoscientists, talking too much of what we know, but very little of what we still don't know. So taking the Kumamoto earthquake as an example, there are like two large earthquakes, one with magnitude 6.5 and the other with magnitude 7.3. And most of the seismology earthquake scientists got to know that which activity fault and what the mechanism is and if tsunami would follow or not. and they had this feeling of there were like too many aftershocks. So some of us thought of, oh, it might be foreshock and maybe followed by larger earthquakes, but we don't have this science of foreshock, main shock. So when we appear on TV or the media, like what we say is these specific, the top 3 comments, like it's on the Hinagu fault and strike slip and no tsunami would be followed. So so this is the limitation of earthquake science. But corresponding the second earthquake, JMA defined the first one as the foreshock and the second one is the main shock. So it's no wonder that general public started to criticize that, why didn't you guys tell us, it's foreshock and we should pay attention more, for the bigger one, followed by that. So so what we really had to do is that, we should tell the fact that we know, but also, we should more insist on what we still don't know. So we can either say like there might be big aftershock or maybe the bigger one, something like that. And so this is important for geoscientists because mentioning the telling difference between the limitation of the science or the innocence of himself. That's what only the professional can do, right? So sorry, I don't know the answer because I'm stupid. Because I have to work harder. Or, oh, everybody, all the seismologists still don't know. We are still working on it. It's science, so we're still working on it. So this kind of difference can only be defined by the professionals. So that's my first key phrase. And the second key phrase is that the revitalization of community and individual initiative in the process of pre and post disaster. So what I want to say here is that the real actors for the disaster prevention are completely left out of the stage. The real actor here are of course, the residents. Right? So take an example of hazard map making. Those who are on stage is the professional and maybe the local administrations. And those residents are completely out of the stage. So, and what is worse is in this situation is that this situation automatically implies that there are 2 kinds of people. One, decide the risk of you guys and tell you what to do when the thing happens. And the other, you just follow them, follow their command. So this is the worst thing that this kind of situation brings. So this is so I would put the all those residents on stage and work together for the common betterment. And my third key phrase is related to the second one. So recently, my student and I work with a small elementary school in Nagano, in nice rice field. It's a small elementary school, and my students and I gave lecture not only to the school kids but also to the parents. And last September, we had a workshop and informed them of preparing food, food stock and water stock for the next disaster. And half a year later, in March, we had an opportunity to interview them, many of the parents. And then one of them was, one of them, she was so sorry. She even apologized us that, oh, I haven't prepared, I haven't bought. And what she told us is that, we live in such a, rice field, so we have 2 years stock of rice and 1 year stock of vegetable. But we are sorry, we didn't buy, the rice that you informed. So I said, no, it's okay, that's already the food stock. So just think of the water, and that's all you have to do. And the second person, she was, she said, oh, I don't have to buy water because we use the well water. So so and she said like she had never paid a penny to get water because the water is like already it's always there ready for them for free. So that's that's kind of area like that. So so then like we mentioned to her that after the big earthquake the well water may be dried up or got dirt. So so you really have to get prepared for the water stock. So for the first case, the one-way communication from professional to non-professional got this made this problem. So the first case is a good example showing the miscommunication would not be found out if there had been only one-way communication from the professional to non-professional. And for the second case, this problem would not be found out if there wouldn't be professional reaching out to their life and culture. Right? So this is the collaboration that I mean here. And the important thing here is that the collaboration of for the common betterment brings light to both professional side and the non-professional side. So that's we really should work for it. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you very much. I think you are more than the confident than us. I mean, Yamagata Sensei, please.
I'm very much afraid to be here, but Professor Tyler asked me to join this. But I started my career in the geophysical fluid dynamics, nonlinear wave dynamics, and then moved to the physical oceanography and climate meteorology, climate dynamics. And now my fourth discipline is more ocean policy. I am now vice president of Japan Ocean Policy Society. And my three key words is this: efficient data acquisition and development of sustainability research and co-working, co-designing practices with stakeholders. Already my previous speakers mentioned to some extent about this, but I make this more general and a little bit philosophical. And the importance of active interaction among science, trans-science, and politics in an open society is very, very important. And but also some bad aspect of this. For example, I'm too much involved in social science and humanity nowadays, so I lost figures and nice photos in my presentation. And this is the first time I never use fancy photo and transparency, okay? And then next, please. Look at this. And Hondo Oki-san was a student. If you do something like this, I scold. So you something like a Russian scientist. No, it's not nice. But I think the European or American people can easily understand if my English is correct. So perhaps I should use Japanese from here. 非常に効率のいいデータ取り方。これはその真の地球を知るために必要でしょうということですね。それで、地球科学の最終的なゴールというのはその地球の未来、我々の未来を予測することにあるということですね。そしてアーリーウォーニング、それからウェルプリペアドネスですか、良き準備する、そういう情報を社会に伝えることであるということです。で、アースサイエンスはたくさんのディスプリンからできていますね。そのサイスモロジー、もちろんですね、オーシャノグラフィー、クライマトロジー、ボルカノロジーとかたくさんあります。で、マチュアリティ、それぞれのサイエンスのマチュアリティの程度は非常に違う。これはサイエンスの難しさにも依存しています。例えば、気象学、これは1950年、フォン・ノイマンとか、ジョン・F・ケネディなんかが頑張りましたけども、ジュール・チャーニーとか、そういう人たちがスーパーコンピューターのテクノロジーの発展とともに、学問の進展とともにですね、ウェザーフォーカストっていうのを実現しています。社会と密接な考えが最もサクセスフルな科学ですね。で、オーシャノグラフィー、これは私たちの時代でもあるんですけども、オーシャノグラフィーもオーシャンプレディクションを持ちました。実際私も会社を経営しています。それで、その次にですね、このサイスモロジーがある。しかしこれは非常に学問難しい。しかし1980年に私がプリンストンユニバーシティに移った時にエルニーニョも 地震も予測できないと言われていました。しかし学問のブレイクスルーみんな我々やったわけですけども、今やエルニーニョは1年前から分かります。これは学問の難しさはあるけれども、そういうチャレンジをしなきゃいけないということは十分ありますね。でそれは、そのグローバルオブザベーション、データアシミュレーションテクノロジー、コンピューティングテクノロジー、それからそのナチュラルフェノメナのベーシックアンダースタンディング、しかも自然の現象というのは階層構造をしています。ハイラキカル、それをよく理解しなきゃいけないということです。重要なことはそのエフィシャントのリアルタイムアクイジション、データアクイジションですね。これやらなきゃいけない。ここにはトレードオフが入るでしょう。金は限られている。サイエンスという夢は果てしなく大きい。そういうところにサイエンスを超えたディシジョンが入ってくるということですね。で次お願いします。で、こういうことでですね、今我々はデータドリブンワールドに住んでいますね。たくさんのデータがある。これジェフリー・サックスから取ってきたんですけれども、そういったデータ、そのグローイングレコグニションですね。サクセスオブサステナブルディベロップメントゴールズ、国連が今2030年で目指していますけれども、これはそういったそのデータを適切に使う。でそのデータをハーネスしていく、上手にハーネス、要するに統合してですね、そしてディシジョンメイクに使っていく。でそのキーというのはそのinvest in building innovative data systems ですね。that draw on new sources of real-time data。これをやらなきゃいけない。これは特に地球科学に非常に必要でしょうと。で、そのデータコレクション、それからユースオブサステナブルディベロップメント、これをやるには新しいですねリンク、プロビジョンオブサービスとそれからコレクションオブアクセシングデータ for decision making、そういう新しいそのネットワークを作っていくということに努力していかなきゃいけないでしょう。次お願いします。でこれまた非常に多くの文章が書かれてますけれども、Development of Sustainable Research for Enhancing Interaction Among Natural Science, Social Science, Humanity です。ですね、これちょっと読んでみます。今度は英語でいきますと、Scientific evidences and research results must be disseminated into society。これはすでに大木さん皆さん喋られましたね。To fill knowledge gaps, to make early warning and well preparedness effective for sustainability and well-being for society, we need to consider economic as well as social aspects such as cost effectiveness。すでに私これ述べました。And regional tradition and culture。これ非常に重要です。The decision of trade-off will be always needed. The language to deliver messages will be very important in this sense。そういう意味で、正確な情報を伝えるという意味で私は文字を書くだけになったんです。ロースクールの人々は まさにそうですね。Once disasters occur, either due to natural hazards or due to man-made hazards, psychological intervention、これ大木さんもおっしゃられましたね。その after disaster です。After disasters will be necessary. Therefore, enhancing daily interaction among natural science, social science, humanities is quite important. This means that we need to develop sustainability research related to earth science ということです。次お願いします。で、これ最後のスライドですけども、co-working, co-designing. This word often used in the future earth community. And initially, I was very much opposite to the future earth concept, too big. But I think now it's a new revolution, new renaissance of our idea and practice with stakeholders for efficient service to society and future generations. To make the above knowledge from science operate, make science operate, that's very important. And meteorology has already operational agencies, oceanography, so we make science really operational in the society. We need to have borderless interaction among all stakeholders, such as expert scientists, citizens, private sectors, and decision makers. In the era of Anthropocene, I don't know, it's geologist already accepted or not. In Japanese, 新人性とか言いますね。Because human activity now influences the global Earth. New era. We need trans-science practices and develop a new science-based society model for sustainability of a future. And so, no need for every geoscientist to be involved in this, because we need to develop basic discipline also. But at the same time, people must understand the importance of trans-science, importance of improving languages to speak to stakeholders. And that aspect is necessary. And the major, those activities will be measured by our old aged people. But young people must understand that kind of is also important. So that's my message. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last panelist is Dr. Hayashi.
My name is Haruo Hayashi. I'm currently the president of National Research Institute for Earth Science and Disaster Resilience. Sounds like a Geoscience and Society. And I'm a social psychologist by training. And so my keywords is risk communication, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. These three keywords came to my mind when I have to explain the mission of a research institute to the people who belongs to that institution. Since the name is too long, so we usually call NEED, NIED, for short, for a research institute. NEED has been very probably famous for geoscience. The very little recognition for disaster resilience type thing. And so, next slide, please. So when I had a chance to talk to our people, I asked them, the mission of NIED is to promote a risk communication. The risk communication, I mean, to make what the expert thinks to be shared by what the general public think. So it's same level of understanding between experts and general public. I think that's the goal of the risk communication. And then in one way or another, each researchers or the administrators of a research institute will take part in that risk communication business. And then in the risk communication, I think we had at least 5 steps. We start with the data. We start with the observation of the facts. And we model those facts into a kind of theory. And then those theory should be transformed to an information product to be shared by everybody. And those 3 steps will be something to do with the interdisciplinarity of the disaster management. Disaster management, including geoscience, is multidisciplinary in nature. But those multidiscipline has to be worked together to reduce the disaster. So that's what I mean, the interdisciplinarity. And most of the scientists believe that's the goal. But it is important that kind of information products to be reached out to the general public. So in order to do that, we need to have a good delivery system. And the final goal of the risk communication to provoke or enact the actions of general public for disaster risk reduction. And that's a kind of a very typical, traditional, scientific explanation of how things goes. But the point I really emphasized to the people at NEED was the upper loop is more important. The delivery system has to be decided by the type of action the people need. And that delivery system also somehow restrict the type of information products we create. The type of information products really choose the model we use. the model will necessitate what kind of observation should be made. By this way, the observation will be delivered to a action, and then needs for action will be feedback to what we observe. So it's a two-way communication process through which we could have a good risk communication between experts and general public. And then the three steps from information products to delivery to a action will be more a transdisciplinarity aspects of the science. And then in these transdisciplinarity aspects, this feedback group from the action side to the information products really makes the things different. And it could be called a co-design or co-production. I think that's a very important thing to promote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I asked all the panelists to prepare the keywords, and then to my surprise, or to be expected in the sense that the keywords, they should have a lot of commonality. And for the risk communications being discussed, and cost and benefit and efficiency of sustainability work, also the interaction and collaboration with stakeholders. And last week, actually, I attended Arctic workshop held in Hokkaido University, and Professor Aikman from the University of Alaska showed us this sphere, which is essentially very similar to what Hayashi-san showed us. From the science side to the stakeholder side, he said action, data observation, modeling, synthesis, and the information product being given to the stakeholders. And he had a reverse loop from the stakeholders to the scientific community. Therefore, I modified, next slide please, to the geoscience in general. How can geoscience help address stakeholders' desired outcome? This is essentially the way we have to contribute to the stakeholders and then their desired outcome. So geoscience community usually they study the extreme events or climatic changes for any general Earth system changes, and then we model and synthesize and produce information. Whether this loop is properly functioned it's a different issue, but these information are given to the stakeholders. But how the stakeholders digest this information and whether this matches to their desired outcome, we have to study, or we have to communicate with the stakeholders, and then redefine the problem with stakeholders' desired outcome, and geoscience community have this drive the entire loop, come up with new data or new observation, model and synthesis, and the information which will be useful. We have to drive this loop many, many times in order to meet the stakeholder desire. In this only loop, we are doing the science for the science. But these loop of the feedback from the stakeholders and then adjust ourselves to the science needed or some of the engineering required by the stakeholders have to be clearly defined. So, so far we have been discussing the keywords, and then I just summarized the keywords into this simple figure, which originally been drawn by Professor Aikman, and which was very similar to what Hayashi-san produced. And then I think it embraces most of the keywords presented by the panelists. Let me open the discussion to the floor. How do you think about so far the discussion of the keywords and then summary of this particular figure? Any questions, any comments? And Any inputs from the people presented here in this room? はい、どうぞ。英語でも日本語でもどちらでも何語でもいいという何語でもいいという。はい、どうぞ。
I'm Yugo Ono, Professor Emeritus of Hokkaido University, and I worked nearly 25 years for the contact between the, would you distribute it? Contact of geoscience and society. And recently I wrote a big paper in the quaternary research in Japan, and it will be appeared next month. So I distribute just a resume. And that in that paper I cited the Roger Pilke's classification of the scientist in relation to the society. So Roger Pilke classified in 4 categories of scientists in relation to the society. The first, by parity classification is that first, the linear model scientist is just a scientist, a pure scientist, and that study only, no interest in the society. And another type is that also they studied, and if there is some demand from the government and so on, they distribute the results. But there's no only passive way to interact with society. But another types of scientists are so-called stakeholder type of scientists, and so they wish to be a stakeholder themselves, yeah. And so there are 2 types of stakeholder type scientists. Is one, Pilke said that issue advocate, and another type is his just the title of his book, Honest Broker of Alternatives. That means there are 2 types of stakeholder type scientists, and in this panel, in this presentation, many scientists argued and emphasized that we need more interaction between stakeholders and the geoscientists. But also I'd like to say that the scientists themselves should be stakeholder, and especially in the decision making. Because especially in Japanese society, after the earthquake and the serious accident of Fukushima, for example, that the safety of the checking of the safety of the nuclear power plant in Japan is a very important issues in Japan and Japanese society. And in that point, for example, the active fault researchers, and I'm also a physical tectonic geomorphologist, and the role of them is very, very important. But actually, unfortunately, for example, in the governmental committee checking the safety of the nuclear power plant, the most of active fault researchers and the tectonic geomorphologists are not included in the committee. And such cases often occur in Japan. Yeah. In other cases, in the flood control issues, also the geomorphologists are not included in the society, and only the civil engineers discuss about the flood control issues. So always I wish to emphasize that the geoscientists should try to involve in the such governmental political decision-making processes and should be a stakeholder. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ono-sensei. I think he has some important points. Geoscience themselves are stakeholders. As today, he emphasized that we have to involve more heavily with all the government policy-making processes. Any questions? はい、どうぞ。
My name is Chihira from Disaster Prevention Research Institute, Kyoto University, and yeah, I like this figure, interaction between stakeholders and geoscience. But I think geoscience has a very broadly, say, constructed. One is a pure scientist, and others are somehow engineering oriented. And so Nishiyama sensei talked about the experience of a Kumamoto earthquake. And just after the Kumamoto earthquake, many applied geoscientists worked hard for the, say, a recovery or investigation of the what happened. So geoscience sounds like pure science, but we must put in mind that there are such engineering-oriented applied geoscientists. Thank you.
In this figure, geoscience here not been defined clearly. That means, I think, through the interaction, this geoscience community itself have to change. Maybe including more engineering, maybe including the social science aspect, policy presenter, and so forth. Exactly what Ono-san said, that the four categories of the whatever the people involved in the policy making and geoscience, I think these have to change through this cycle. I think that is one of the key messages which Chigira-san said. Any further questions? Yes, please.
I'm Peggy Helwig. I work at UC Berkeley in the seismological laboratory, and among other things, one of my jobs is making sure that we talk to the people who are not scientists and that they understand. And I think that we as scientists, an important part of our job is the communication part, where we use words that they understand and make pictures that help them understand correctly. And I know that risk is a very big problem concept to get across.
Thank you. Hori-san.
Engineering part, because
sure.
as I mentioned, I'm an engineer, and let me briefly mention the difference between the scientists and the engineers. In my viewpoint, the engineer is supposed to have a responsibility for what he did. It's very important. Even though we don't know fully understanding the structure, we have to make, sorry, this building may not be perfectly fine, but we have to build it. And we have a responsibility for the result. So this might be a difference. We have to always consider the consequence, even though we don't know fully understand the process.
This point of science versus engineering, any further comments on it? Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Simon Wallace. I work in Japan. I'm a structural geologist, and most of the structures I look at, if it's 1 million years old, I think that's quite recent. But I am interested in this topic as someone who lives in Japan, if nothing else. Talking about responsibility, I'm reminded of the L'Aquila earthquake in Italy. And I'm sure many of you will know there was some announcements by earth scientists and local officials. After the first event in L'Aquila, they said, okay, there's been a big earthquake, but after a big earthquake, things quietened down, and someone said, you can go back to your homes, it's all right. And of course, there was another big event afterwards, and many people were killed. So it's a little bit similar to what happened in Kumamoto. One of the differences was that afterwards, these earth scientists were prosecuted and were found guilty because they were held responsible for their pronouncements. And in fact, just recently that's been overturned, and I think it's only the scientists have been not exactly exonerated, but they've not been found legally culpable. But the official, there's still one official who's been prosecuted. So, getting messages across to the stakeholders is great, but there's obviously a very delicate balance there. How far do you take responsibility, including legal responsibility, for what you say? You say if you're an engineer, you take that responsibility. For us as scientists, we can. No, perhaps people would like to comment a bit on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal issues are always been complicated. I think we cannot avoid this one, but we have to face it very seriously if we're going to communicate risk communication properly. Let me turn to the more discussion among the panelists. May I have the next PowerPoint, please? Okay, the question I raised is that using that figure you saw in front previously, and then taking the co-conveners basic questions, I broke down to the two questions. Has geoscience community take the necessary leadership regarding the interdisciplinary collaboration among the observation, modeling, and delivery of information? That is the one which exactly the Hayashi-san asked. And the collaboration means not among us, among the engineers, among the policymakers, all these with stakeholders in a broad sense. Our own sort of task of collaboration among the observation, modeling, and delivery of information. Is there any comments from the panelists on this question one, or your answer, whatever? Maybe the Hayashi-san you have, since you brought this issue.
Okay. If I answer to this question, I would say yes or no. It depends. So that's something to do with the contents or the definition of geoscience. As Professor Ono mentioned, that diversity of geosciences also do exist, so that some of the geoscience sector will be very active in promoting such interdisciplinary collaboration, but some other may not be such active in doing so. They may be very happy with the pure scientists who really want us to understand the secret of the earth or something. So from a disaster risk reduction point of view, I do want the more to the geoscience community to be a good leader of promoting disaster risk reduction, because they are the guy who are in charge of predicting the future part. So unless we have a good understanding of what's going to happen, it might be too much responsibility for the engineers to build the environment, or the practitioners, or including a social scientist, to prepare for the unprevented disasters. That's a very costly effort. So that I do want to have more collaboration among the various type of, as for the interdisciplinary, the disciplines of the science and technology, for a single purpose of disaster risk reduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Oki sensei, dozo.
Could you go back to the slide, the previous slide? Yeah. I was sitting together with those big names. I feel like I became back to students. I have a question to maybe those professors. I would like to focus on the lower arrow, and it says like data and modeling and information, but taking the Nankai Trough earthquake, the new the scenario as an example, with the with a bunch of data and the fancy modeling, they got the information that the certain part of in Kochi Prefecture, the tsunami height would reach to 30 meters high or more than that. And what happened to the stakeholders, I mean the residents, is that I worked there with those school kids and residents, and what happened is that they say like oh, I'm gonna die with next tsunami, so don't worry about that. Or they say like, oh, no tsunami will come. They are telling a lie. I don't believe it. I won't hear anything from them anymore. So this thing. So it's like I hope you remember my second slide. Those without the stakeholders on stage, whatever fancy the the visualization is, whatever accurate the modeling is, the stakeholders, they just become, dependent or, have no motivation to, to survive. So, so it's kind of ironic, effect that the more geoscientists work hard, the more they lose their initiative in surviving their life. Their life there. But then I have, so that's one question, but at the same time I found the arrow on the upper. So problem definition, yeah, and so I would like to ask to give some example that, when you talk about the Nankai Trough, the arrow there is the prediction of the earthquake. When is it? When is it? Right? So that's the only one question that they want to be defined by us. But that's not communication at all, right? And that's the limitation that we can, we won't reach there for the next, Nankai Trough earthquake. So so this, the arrow, the upper arrow seems really, nice, but I just want it to break down or give some example about for that.
May I have this question? Yeah, I think the Oki-san mentioned already the question 2 has Geoscience community sufficient promote a problem definition considering stakeholder desired outcome. And then of course in the case of earthquake, of course prediction is a key, and I don't know, this is only one desire for them to like to know, but if you be involved with stakeholders, their desire related to regarding the earthquake and tsunami, I think they kind of understood us that this is the limit of science in general way, but should we just stop there? Because we are not going to be able to predict earthquake, our definition of their problem is no more work should be done, or what do you think? I mean, there is a limit, but beyond of our limit, how are we going to cope with beyond our limit to be contribute to the society?
What happened to me was really interesting that, so I started to tell them the limitation of their earthquake science. For example, like we cannot predict when it will be. And what happened is that, there's a strong protestant from the community, well, it's going to be your fault that if we get less amount of budget. That's what happened to me. And at the same time, the public, you know, there were like so many phone calls that, you know, oh, you give us back your salary. You're not working at all. So this is, but you know, for the face-to-face, you know, when I talk to the school kids or the residents at Kochi Prefecture, you know, even though they got this, you know, big assumption of 35 meters high tsunami, you know, they, you know, oh, you come all the way from Tokyo to here, and yes, we gonna work, you know, with you. So you know, so the face-to-face communication. So the risk communication has maybe several categories, and you know, face-to-face communication gonna work for that, but maybe not the communication from government, you know, straight down to the local people will not work. So that's something we have to think of, you know, on which level that your scientists are gonna work together with. That's, yeah.
Is there anybody in the floor belong to the government earthquake committee member? Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Manabu Hashimoto from Disaster Prevention Research Institute. I was deeply involved in the modeling of a Nankai Trough earthquake, Oki-sensei said. And also, I was involved in our evaluation of a predictability of a Nankai Trough earthquake. In that report, we denied. No possibility of the prediction of earthquakes. So, but still, I feel a resistance from my community. And from the government, I feel some kind of resistance, pressure not to say we cannot do. So it is very undesirable situation in Japan. Public government and the people still have some belief that science is perfect. So I think we must change that kind of attitude. So I changed my mind to against any kind of theories of geoscience, especially earthquake science. So I usually cast doubt any kind of theories. So we should deeply consider the assumption and the data accuracy of data or something. But the recent activity of earthquake science is not paying much attention to that kind of problems. That's my comments.
Actually, if I may, why I have so many earthquake experts here in the room, on the topic of this Nankai Trough earthquake here in Japan, I sometimes get the feeling that we are spending a lot of resources and our focus simply on the Nankai Trough. And in the time that we've been doing this, we've had 2 major earthquakes in areas that we didn't really, as far as I understand as a sedimentologist, marine geologist, in an area that we weren't really expecting in the Tokai, Tohoku area, and then in Kumamoto. So it's coming to this question too, are we focusing too much as far as Japan is concerned just on the Nankai region and not considering much outside of that area? Should we be more broadly focusing, perhaps?
Okay, further questions or comments?
Thank you so much. I'm actually representing the U.S. government. My name is Elizabeth Lyons, and I am the director of the U.S. National Science Foundation's regional office here in Tokyo. And this has been a fascinating discussion, and thank you so much. I think one of the challenges here is that because it's a joint symposium, one of the opportunities I think that this group has is to understand what the U.S. is doing in this particular area. Because we've learned a lot about Japan, and I've felt several earthquakes recently since I've moved here. But more seriously, I think there are tremendous opportunities to really understand this intersection between the society and the geoscience and the risk. And in fact, NSF and JST funded a workshop on risk communication a couple of years ago. And that had some really profound implications for how we understand culturally how the US and how Japan understand risk. And I would love to see these discussions turned into research proposals. That is, what can we learn? How do we understand how people understand risk? How do you communicate it? How do you take that kind of activity and understand it? NSF has recently funded what's called a SAVI, Science Across Virtual Institutes, on earthquake engineering that involves Japan, Chile, New Zealand, and the US. These are earthquake-prone countries. What can we learn? How do we build a community and do the research on these kinds of activities that can then feed into the policymakers and feed into the statements? I think it's a tremendous opportunity. Obviously, I can't fund your proposal, but JST is funding this. This fits very well, by the way. I was on the US delegation to the Science and Technology G7 meetings in Scuba last week, and the Society 5.0 and human-centered science. This fits in perfectly, and the US has also done a lot of work in this area. So I think the opportunities are fantastic, and I'd encourage you to really put forward tough research questions and how to address those. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Margaret-san.
I'd like to make two observations. One has to do with this issue of risk and communicating risk, and the other is with your question about whether we've shown leadership. Regarding risk, it seems to me that we haven't adequately conveyed to people that they deal every day with a lot of risks that cannot be predicted. Think about fire and house fires. 100 years ago, communities lived in deadly fear of fires because of the nature of construction and the ability of communities to respond and the likelihood that a whole community would be destroyed by a fire. That's not a fear anymore, largely because of improvements to building, improvements to response, insurance. And so we think differently about that kind of risk. And I think that we need to convey that that many other risks that we deal with, whether those are tsunami or earthquake or severe and quickly emerging storms, are very similar, and that what we learn allows us to prepare for those much more effectively, whether that's in terms of construction, in terms of response, the modeling that we saw about how you would deal with people during the aftermath of a huge earthquake. And I think that it has to do with your question, Oki-san, about everybody says, well, if you can't predict, we're going to take your money back. But I think that we need to inform people about what can be, what we do know, and how that translates into their preparedness to increase their resilience and increase their likelihood of survivability. The second point that I wanted to make is your question, Akko, says the geoscience community, but we're really many communities. So some of our community is the research community. Some of the community is the community of practitioners who deal with this. Some of the community is the translation community that deals with communication. And here I think that in each one of those, there has been great leadership in identifying what needs to be done in that area. And to some extent, we depend on great leadership in agencies and governments to be able to help us span those gaps or span the gulfs between those individual communities. Some of us as academics are fantastic communicators. Others are not. But if we can provide better ways to hand off results to the parts of the community that deal with practicing, with communicating, I think that we'll be better served. It's not that I'm trying to say that people don't have any responsibility, but we need to strengthen those pieces that are the links between our individual communities, as well as show leadership within each of those communities.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm Shinichito from Tokyo University, and I would like to add an example about you mentioned first items. So I experienced Sanrik's big tsunami. At that time, in Minami Sanrikcho, the disaster center was damaged. The building was third floor. And very close to that center, there's an elementary school. It has also 3-floor buildings. But there is a training every month. So every student go up to the mountain if they felt a big earthquake. So that at that time, they climb up the mountain, and every student was survived from the tsunami. It is a huge information for them. So even if we cannot predict when the earthquake happened, but they know that at that time, big tsunami will come. So the elementary school student going up to the mountain, but the civil servant is in the center of the disaster. So they were all lost their life, but the student was survived. I think that is one benefit of the science. Thank you.
So, I'm Natsuya Abe from JAMSTEC. I'm igneous petrologist studying on mantle rocks. My pure science is not related to the seismology, but I'm interested in this kind of communication with people because, I totally agree with the previous speakers. Even if we cannot predict when and what scale of earthquake happen, we can predict what kind of risk or what kind of hazard will happen, and we can inform that to the people if we research extend our high-level research or high-level simulation we can do. And I want to tell you my example I experienced. When or after March 11th happened, I talked with my friends, no scientists, ordinary people, and they are really afraid of the earthquake, the aftershocks. We had so many aftershocks, and they were afraid about the if Japan will break and it will sink into the mantle. So that's, for me, it never happened. I know that never happened in our time scale. So because I have knowledge about the mantle is solid state, it's not move so fast. But the ordinary people are really afraid about that. But we can say that never happened, and you don't have to be afraid about it. So if we study, so we can tell then what kind of risk we have and what kind of risk we don't have. So I think from the scientist point of view, we have to do research more, and we have to inform the people. So yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I think we are having a great debate now. Great. I like to use more panelists for the last moment. I like to really translate this into the different questions. Question that what really we should do. I know that we need to promote the problem definition regarding the stakeholders' desired outcome. But the people say that the risk communication, face-to-face communication, all those things. But I think we got to continue to do that. But what is the priority in question 2? Yamagata sensei?
I'm not field in the geoscience, earth science. Geo is rather limited, so as an oceanographer, I feel a bit uneasy. But anyway, this is a very interesting topic, and in some sense, a kind of deja vu for me, because for example, meteorology, marine science, and others, seismology also, in Tokyo University, they are started from the nation people's interest, right, to predict hurricane or typhoon. Then the government introduced meteorology school, and tsunami oceanography school, and earthquake seismology. So those are number 1, number 2, number 3, old name. Then some other geosciences are included. So I think the earth science, geoscience, is not completely curiosity-driven science. It's more related to society, and this is a renewed interest, and is modern technology development and others. So this is in some sense quite interesting, because I'm not the 100-year-old boy, but I learned from my old professor and others. We oceanography very old, and you also meteorology school also. So interesting thing is to interact. As I already, Oksan and many people said, interaction, very important with society. And by involving society, sometimes we receive very crazy questions and chaos occurs. But even so, in an open society, like Japan or United States or Europe, some other countries not, but we must encourage interactions, different policy makers. So I'd like to borrow the very interesting word introduced by the Alvin Weinberg, where he first introduced transscience. So he said, one crucially important law for us is to make clear where science ends and transscience begins. And the Oksan said, another Oksan's word is limitations of science, right? And to inject some intellectual discipline into the republic, he said, republic of transscience. But I'd like to say, I wrote realm of science, but it's too old style. But anyway, to inject some intellectual disciplines into the transscience field is very, very important. And he said, the republic of science can be destroyed more surely by withdrawal of public support for science. So because the science, our geoscience, also earth science, exists for well-being of human beings and society. So we must encourage this kind of communication. And also, of course, we must improve our philosophy. We shouldn't return to the original starting point. We must improve, polish, and also introduce international collaborations and networks. So I think this is the first step of the American Geophysical Union on the JpGU. And I hope the collaboration and submit the proposal on the budget and encourage this kind of conversation. So I'm sorry, I not completely focus on the...
No, I think
question 2.
You mentioned it very clearly, Stephen. Sorry, we're not answering your question about the Nankai Trough, but may proceed to you have any comments on the the stakeholders' desires outcome, how we're going to define it, how we're going to interact with those stakeholders.
I think it's probably most important to avoid focusing on just a particular subset of stakeholders, which sometimes I think happens. And it's easier said than done, but to make sure that you are very clearly in widely defining who are the actual stakeholders. And that's been discussed here, I think, a few times about some of the audience members mentioned about that scientists also need to consider themselves as stakeholders, for example. That would be my main suggestion, to make sure that we have a complete definition. Yes.
Thank you. I think time is approaching to the end. I'd like to have the input from the co-conveners. We have whether we have done a great debate or not, and then your suggestion of the future improvement, or what we're going to do hereafter.
Thank you very much for everybody and moderator and panelists. We got very fruitful discussions. Only thing this time we didn't discuss is the education of young people. We have to want to discuss the, how to grow a vocation, how to grow sense of professionalism for young generation, young people. And that is next. That will be done in the next joint in your session in fall meeting. Okay. So.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to thank you for participating very actively to this great debate. I think that for the first attempt, it's a good try. We made 3 points, I would say, and I strongly encourage you, for those who will attend the fall meeting in December, to attend the follow-up session that we will organize in December. Thank you very much. Arigato.